Good afternoon. This is Annette Oso, Managing Director for Resilient Virginia. As we're having folks come in, I want to welcome you to the fourth webinar of the 2024 Spring Resiliency Academy series. I want to also recognize the colleagues, Trish Porter, Bill Bond, and Randolph Whitlow, who helped put together the series. And in addition, Jerry Savenka, who is our technical advisor, who is assisting with production today. We'll have a few logistical notes here. We are recording this session, and actually all the sessions for the series are available. Please introduce yourself in the chat box. If you do have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box, and there will be an interactive portion of this event for live discussion with the presenters. Note that we have the transcription feature enabled if you choose to use that. We'll have a brief poll of the different sectors represented today, and then we'll go forward with the interactive session. And some notes at the end on upcoming events, including our annual meeting. We want to first thank Mid-Atlantic RISA series this spring and fall. The small grant that supports it is from NOAA. From NOAA funding. We also wanted to take a minute to thank our Ann Sampson, ECT, and Clark Nexon, as well as our members and donors. Your support enables us to bring a wide range of resiliency funding and resources to a wide audience around the state, and to convene events such as the Resiliency Academy series and our biennial conferences. Today, we're happy to have Krista, Romita, Grocholski as one of the speakers, and Lena Easton Calabria, also from MARISA. And Krista is works with the RAND Corporation as a physical scientist, and she does work developing decision and user-centered climate data tools, and incorporating climate projections into stormwater management and hazard mitigation planning processes. Lena is the program manager, and she worked for the Nature Conservancy, focusing on green infrastructure, and was a National Geographic Emerging Explorer, where she worked in the Amazon rainforest with indigenous communities. I'd now like to go ahead and turn the event over to the folks there from MARISA.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Annette, for that introduction. My name is Lena Easton Calabria, and I am the program manager of MARISA. And Krista and I will be talking today about how to use MARISA's climate and hazard mitigation planning tool for local hazard mitigation planning. Looking forward to it. All right, next slide, please. Great. So I'm going to give a brief background on our team. So MARISA is a NOAA-funded climate adaptation partnership that covers the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States. You can see this map here that kind of shows our region. We were actually first funded in 2016. We had a first 5-year grant from NOAA, and now we're wrapping up the 3rd year of our second 5-year grant from NOAA. And we're a partnership of 7 institutions, as you can see here. MARISA is housed at the RAND Corporation, and we partner with Cornell, Morgan State University, Carnegie Mellon, and a few others to kind of successfully complete work around the whole region. And our mission and goal is really to work with communities in the Mid-Atlantic to enhance adaptation to climate change. And we really focus on doing that through improved data, place-based decision support, and public engagement. So I mentioned that we first were funded in 2016. So the first year of that grant, and then also as we were applying to NOAA for our second 5-year grant, we really kind of approached these planning with by listening, right? So we held listening tours, we held multiple listening sessions with stakeholders surrounding the region, and we really guided both our work and our proposal using the information that we learned. And one of the reasons that was really important to us is that we didn't reinvent the wheel in the region, and that we also understood where MARISA could be most valuable and have the best impact given our expertise. And some of the things that came out of that included focuses on stormwater management, extreme heat, and building climate data tools like CHaMP, which we'll be talking about today. And CHaMP, along with our other tools, have really come from requests from potential stakeholders, things that we heard weren't available or easily accessible in the region. And we also tried to the best of our ability to actually incorporate feedback during the development process. And that ended up having some really strong impacts, we think, ultimately on usability and applicability to the region. And then finally, Krista and I and other members of our team present at presentations like this. We like talking about our tools. We're excited about them, and we're always excited to hear where and how people are using them. So why are we presenting here today? Some of you may have seen either Krista or I at some of the earlier sessions, but actually this program, like Annette said, we ran a small grants program last year, and that helped to fund this Resilience Academy. And the reason we wanted to run that program there was a couple reasons. Primarily, we want to, build our partnerships in the region. We also want to, of course, continue to enhance community capacity and resilience to a changing climate, and to do that in kind of new and innovative ways. And then again, we like talking about our tools. We want to ensure people know that they exist and that people are using them as useful, right? So we held 4 competitions. You can see them listed here, and Resilient Virginia was the recipient of our Climate and Hazard Mitigation Planning grant. So that's why we're here today. We're really excited to talk to you a little bit about our tools and resources and hear your ideas, feedback, questions. Yeah, looking forward to it. So with that, I will hand it over to Krista.
Thanks, Lena. Okay, great. So as Annette said before, I'm Krista Romita Grocholski. I'm the lead principal investigator for MARISA. And there we go. Now I'm on the right slide. I want to talk to you a little bit about what we've been talking about for the entire Resiliency Academy series this spring, which is really about taking a forward-looking approach to hazard mitigation planning. So as was discussed in session 2 of this series, FEMA recently updated their policies so that now hazard mitigation plans are required to include a discussion of the probability of future hazard events and the potential effects that climate change will have on the future intensity and location of these events and hazards. So that means that local governments now need to include climate considerations in their hazard mitigation plans in order to have them approved by FEMA. And having an approved hazard mitigation plan is a prerequisite for being for having jurisdictions be eligible for various kinds of pre- and post-disaster funding opportunities. And that can be a critical enabler for communities to increase their resilience to and for preparing for future extreme weather events. The idea of creating or enabling communities to take a forward-looking approach to hazard mitigation planning isn't new to the MARISA team, even though it was only recently required by FEMA. And so for the past 7 years or so, Baja, formerly from the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, who gave a great talk in session 3, and I encourage you all to listen to the recording if you missed that session. She's been working on developing guidance documents that are designed to shift hazard mitigation plans from being a more reactive kind of box checking document that you make and sit on the shelf to being more forward-looking, proactive, and engaging of the communities. The template that is posted through USDN has information on processes to use, and even cut and paste text for different sections of I think all chapters of a hazard mitigation plan, that you can put directly into plans, and that can make it so that localities can include social equity, ecology, climate adaptation, and climate mitigation aspects into their hazard mitigation plans with less of a lift. We're trying to not make it more work to take a forward-looking approach. And the CHaMP tool grew out of discussions that members of the MARISA team had with Baja, I think starting back in 2017, very early in our existence, about how we can collaborate with them to make historical and future projected climate and hazard information more accessible and easier to put directly into hazard mitigation plans. I want to acknowledge that there are, of course, other tools that help with this process, and we're going to ask for you all to tell us what those tools are that you already use. And many of them are discussed in session 2 of the series. So if you're interested in knowing what some of those resources are, that's covered in that recording as well. And CHaMP isn't a replacement for all data sources. Particularly, it currently doesn't include any social vulnerability information, and it doesn't have asset level data sets. So something like HAZIS will also be needed in addition to CHaMP. But I'm going to share with you why I think CHaMP might be a useful resource for folks building hazard mitigation plans and other climate related plans. Okay, so let me do a quick introduction to CHaMP for any of you who missed session 3. I did a longer version of this introduction. If you just don't have perfect recall, I want to just make sure you all know what I'm talking about. So the Climate and Hazard Mitigation Planning, or CHaMP tool, was designed through a series of, well, multiple years of speaking with Baja and other USDN members. And it was developed to support the development of climate-related local and regional plans, specifically with hazard mitigation plans in mind. We also developed the back end and how the logistics of the tools run to make it so that it could serve as a sustained resource for this information. There are a few key features that I want to highlight that I think help support the purpose that I outlined. We designed the tool through an extensive co-production process, many hours of meetings with Baja, hours of meetings with other USDN members in both the Mid-Atlantic, the Carolinas, and in the Great Lakes regions that CHaMP currently covers, other county level planners and other stakeholders. The observational data that's included in CHaMP is linked to regularly updated databases. This is thanks to our collaboration with the Northeast Regional Climate Center. So the data that you see in CHaMP is up to date and will remain up to date because those data, it's linked directly in with those databases. We provide a broad range of climate and hazard variables that we've selected down from, I think, the 45 that are included in some NOAA databases to ones that are most relevant for the regions covered in CHaMP. And in addition to having visualizations of the climate and hazard data that you can download and put directly into plans, we also have interpretive text that tells you the trends that we see in those plots and other useful information that we hope about each hazard, say like the definition and things like that, that are customized for the state or county that you've selected. We also have links to citations and things like that throughout the tool. So I'm going to switch to just a basic demonstration of the tool before we head into some questions. Okay, so this is what the homepage of CHaMP looks like. So what it'll look like if you go to the link. I want to point out first where you can find the documentation. So this is a little question mark over here. You just click on it and you can find out the purpose of the tool, just a lot about a slightly longer version of what I just said, and highlights these key features that I was just talking about. You can also get into how to use the tool if you use it without my supervision. It tells you the information that I'm largely going to share in this demo, and tell you where to go and where to find things. It also has this really handy dandy chart that I really appreciate that shows all of the different kind of data sets and information that are available in the tool. So the hazard types, that information actually comes from the NOAA storm events database, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. And then the climate metrics and projections, which come from a combination of a gridded historical climate data set and the LOCA 1 version of CMIP5 climate models. So this tells you all the information that is included in CHaMP and tells you how to access it. Also, under this little question mark, we have more data and technical information. So if you care about the details of where the climate data is coming from, what citation to use if you use CHaMP and things like that. There's also information about the climate models and how to select different scenarios. We also have the information about the hazard and impacts data and more about the storm events database. Oh, and there's also a report that we wrote. And so if you click on see the report, or up here, you click on this thing that Rand helped us publish, that has a technical report with all the nitty-gritty details that you might need to know about the data, and also has a kind of step-by-step process of how to find different information in CHaMP. We can also use this to pull up a location. So I'm from Baltimore. So if you look up Baltimore, Maryland, CHaMP will take you right to it. So let me go back to the homepage. And let's see. I will also, let's go and look at the selection panel. So there's different, as I showed you, metrics and climate hazard information, and they're organized by theme, which is a key thing that our stakeholders suggested for the CHaMP model or CHaMP tool. So you can click on things like coastal hazards, and a bunch of options will come up. You can then down select to coastal flood and other hazard types. From there, you can click on, as we had when you show up, extreme rainfall or flooding. And then there's different climate metrics and projections. So anything in this top part of the menu has climate projections associated with it and come from kind of climate data sets. Anything that's in the hazard types relates to stuff that's in the NOAA storm events database. And so you can select what you're interested in from here. You can adjust the time range if you'd like to see how trends may have changed over time. And then I'm going to click on Virginia to get some state-specific information. So you can see here that we zoomed in on Virginia. There's a regional overview to tell you how the theme that you selected is expected to react to climate change over time. So this tells us that we expect to see increases in extreme precipitation over time. And this is based off of things like the National Climate Assessment. And then have information on the trends that we're seeing at the state level and the source of that information. And you can see the data itself by clicking on this button down here that says show historical data. And so you can then highlight and see what the precipitation was in any, this is the number of days with precipitation greater than 1 inch. And you can see that for any of the years that we have since 1981. And then you can also click on either one of these two buttons, which have the high emission future, low emission future, and show climate projections for this hazard or this climate metric. You can also switch to the hazard information. So I'll switch to flash flood. And this comes from the storm events database and it has a different view. So I'll show you what it looks like on the map. You see the colors have all changed. And the description over here has changed to talk more about flash flood events and provide a definition of flash flood events. And this has the number of flash flood events that have been reported through the storm events database. We know that this database is incomplete and so would need to be supplemented with local data when possible, but this is everything that's in that database. And you can click on, say here, the events that happened, say in 2020. And this side panel changes to show you something that I think is really cool from that database that can be hard to add, the storm events database, that in some cases they have these more detailed narratives that go with specific events. And you can find out more about which counties were affected and what those impacts were like. And so I think that's a really nice way to access the storm events database. It can be hard to find it in the way that it's provided by NOAA. I think it's in just a series of CSV files. So this is, I think, a more interactive way to get that information. And you can click on this little menu over here and download the chart or download the data that goes into making the chart. If you don't like the colors that we chose or something like that, you can make your own plot. You can also zoom into a county scale. So I live in Fairfax County, so click on Fairfax County. And you can switch that. This is switched to county details, and then it has the same information just for the county. And you can look at the data for the county and pull up that specific information. Or switching to, say, total annual precipitation, and you can see the trends in the model projections, the trends in the historical data, and things like that. And again, you can download any of these charts or download the data that goes into them. And this text is just designed to be copied and pasted right out of CHaMP and right into hopefully some plans. And so I think that's all I'm going to do for the demo now. I'm going to switch to some time for questions and some Mentimeter polls. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask, please put it in the chat or in the Q&A. And then Lena is going to take us through a few Mentimeter prompts.
Great. Okay, so we're trying to have this be a little bit interactive. We'd love to hear from you all. So Trish just put the link in the chat for Mentimeter. I'll give everyone a minute to hop over there and we'll get started. The first question is, what tools have you been using thus far in your hazard mitigation planning or similar planning processes? Boo, okay. Somebody tested it. It's working. Yeah, this will be a word cloud. Okay, or BOO. Okay, local knowledge, NWS. Okay, Kaiser Permanente. Jesus maps, local records, still learning. Yeah, definitely. Also, I'm assuming that BOO is a tool that I'm actually not familiar with. Krista, maybe you know. Rainfall data, okay. Learning, great. NOAA, okay, FEMA.
See the camera tool. I wanted to highlight that I think the data sources for the climate data in CHaMP and in the camera tool are similar. So you would get the same information from the climate side from the two tools.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Thanks for everyone that responded to that. Next slide or next question. Okay. And have you already included climate in your hazard mitigation planning? Yes or no? Learning. Okay. Great. A lot of yeses. No. Yep. Great. Okay. So some yeses, a couple nos as well. Okay. Next question. And then when you're doing hazard mitigation planning, do you work with internal staffing or is it done by internal staff or a consultant? Okay, great. So not quite even, but close to it. That reflects what we hear from folks as well. But that's great to know. All right, next
And,
question.
Lena, I'm seeing some responses in the chat as well. So
yeah. Yeah, great. Internal consultant, great. And then this is a free form again. Which hazards are most important to you or most significant for you?
Most impactful.
Urban heat island, flooding, heat.
I'm feeling the heat this week.
Hurricanes, yeah. Tornadoes, storm surge, okay. wind, fire, winter storms, yeah. Great. Okay, thank you. Let's see, is there, yes. And in your hazard mitigation planning, would technical assistance be helpful for you? Yes, yes, lots of yeses, no, okay. No. Yes, and a lot of yeses in the chat. Well, we like to hear that, so that is great. That's exciting for us. Okay, wonderful. All right, I think that was the last question. Thanks everyone for answering.
And we'll have some more interactive or options for interactive input in a little while. Also, if anyone had any questions relating to CHaMP, if you want to put that in the chat, I'm happy to answer them now, or I can take us through what I have next up, which is kind of showing how you might include information from CHaMP in a hazard mitigation plan. And so if anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A. But we can also do that when the we will turn off the recording for the last bit of our interactive session. So here's an example. I was looking at extreme heat because it's hot where I am today, and so it was on my mind. But I pulled out the FEMA requirement to include things like the hazard identification or the type of hazards, a description of the hazard, information about past events and locations, and the probability of future events. And I wrote down in here where to find them in CHaMP. I'm going to take you through that, but hopefully this will help folks if they just are looking at the slides in the future. But so let's see, go to the next slide. So pulling up the description. So let me go to just what it looks like when you show up at CHaMP. So I'm going to switch to heat, extreme heat here. And this is where you find, just the kinds of hazards that are included in here. And that's one way to figure out what information you want to include. And then the description for heat hazards would be in here. We go to heat or excessive heat. Here's the kind of NOAA National Weather Service definition of what excessive heat means. Or if you switch to just regular heat, there seems to be a definitional difference between excessive heat and heat event. And that comes related to the storm events database. And so I just copied what a heat event was and put it into this table. If you want information on past events and locations of those events, you can, from here in CHaMP, go to show annual data, and you can see the events that heat events that have happened before and the excessive heat events that have happened before. And you can click on them, like I mentioned before, to see which counties were impacted by a particular event and any narratives that come along with it. So let's see if we can find any additional narratives. So for heat in the heat event. And you can kind of see from here that sometimes the data is not overly consistent, particularly on the narrative side, because it's optional to report to the storm events database, and it seems that not everybody does for every event, for every locality, and the level of detail. So it depends on just who is excited about including this information. But you can get information from the narratives about, say, like this, infants that were stuck in a hot vehicle during an extreme event. If you want to see, you can make this bigger if you need to be able to read more of these as well. So that's where you can find information on past events and locations. You can also pull the historical climate data as well, in addition to that. So instead of you can switch to, say, days with highs above, let's do 90. And you can see the historical record for the number of days in a given year that had highs greater than 90. And we can see that the trend for Virginia, and actually I will select down to Fairfax County. And you can see at the county level what the historical data looks like. And there's a slight decreasing trend in the data, which I think is kind of interesting. So that's where you can choose multiple other metrics if you wanted to talk about the maximum summer temperature. For some reason, talking about high heat events. I'm not sure why it's being a little bit slow. But there are multiple metrics that go with the heat information from the historical climate side. And you can just select them from here if you like, or switch to a different temperature threshold. And then, oh, let me go back. And so you can also, as in addition to the plot, you can pull in the text that shows the trend. In terms of looking at the probability of future events, from this view where we had clicked on the historical data, you can see in the regional overview, this text here you can copy and paste and use to your heart's content, where it talks about seeing increases in the average number of days with extreme temperatures in the future projections compared to a historical baseline. And then you can switch to looking at future projections, and this text you can use to say what the trend or what the increase might look like, and pull that in and talk about what that might mean for the probability of future heat events. And so before, if we have time, I can do another example where you would pull information from CHaMP, but I think hopefully that gives you a good sense of where you might go to get different things. I want to acknowledge that some of the data limitations that we have in this current version of CHaMP, namely in the storm events database. While I think that CHaMP is a really great way to get to that information, as I mentioned during the talk, there are some limitations with that data set in terms of its completeness. And so you should supplement this information with local information whenever possible. And that the events database only uses data from 1996 to the present, which isn't particularly a long time period. And so because it's only, 30 years or so, it might not contain information on rare but potentially highly impactful hazards. So something that only has, say, a 1% chance of happening in a given year might not show up in the historical record that's represented in the storm events database. Another data gap that we currently have in CHaMP that I've neglected to put on this slide is that we don't currently have any social vulnerability data in CHaMP, but that's something that we are considering for the future. CHaMP version 2.0 is under development, and so I want to highlight a few features that we intend on going live in the sometime this summer. We'll have updated climate models for the CMIP6 set of climate models. We'll also include historical observation data from weather stations. So if you have a station near you, you can easily pull information from that station. We'll also have additional data on hurricane and tropical storm tracks, because that's something that we found was particularly incomplete in the storm events database. And so I wanted to address that as soon as we could. And we're working on adding additional features as well, looking into linking in sea level rise tools and things like that. And as I said, we're working on identifying additional data sets to supplement the NOAA storm events database. So if you all have data sets that you all use and think are more reliable or more complete, we'd love to hear about those. We're also working on developing training materials, kind of like the Resiliency Academy series, to help people use CHaMP for various plans. And throughout, we will continue with our co-production and work with communities, hopefully, to operationalize the information in CHaMP and figure out where we need to provide additional guidance and training or additional information into the tool itself. And I would like to stop the recording so we can head over to the Jamboard discussion and people can kind of raise their hands and ask questions, and we can have a bit more of an interactive discussion.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lena and Krista. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to a few minutes on how folks might be involved with the fall series of of this webinar series here. We've had some discussion about bringing in panel of local government folks who are doing hazard mitigation planning and have a more of a interactive session or two in the fall. So I didn't know if Krista, do you all want to say a few words about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we are looking for folks to work with us, and the MARISA team would provide free technical support to see if we can use CHaMP or other MARISA data and tools to help inform your hazard mitigation plan or other plans. So if you are interested in working with us on that, we would love to do that. And it would be fantastic if we could start working on that this summer, and then we can share with folks kind of a more tangible case study of what that process is like in the fall series for the Resiliency Academy. Because we've heard from folks that case studies are really helpful when trying to figure out how to use new sources of information.
Right. All right, great. Thank you. And then looking in the short term forward, we want to make sure to let folks know that Resilient Virginia is hosting its annual meeting July 25th. That'll be at the Virginia Department of Forestry facility in Charlottesville. And we're happy to say we're celebrating 10 years of accelerating resilience planning for climate-ready communities. So please join us for national program updates, for more information on our current and planned program activities, and for some great networking. We will have the meeting in the afternoon and then dinner at a local restaurant for additional networking and recognition of folks who have worked with us over the past 10 years. So you can see that the registration QR code is there on the screen, and we'll also be sending out a link for that registration. So please do put that on your calendar. And then just a final note, as we indicated, we'll have a fall series and on the climate and hazard mitigation planning, where we hope to be able to engage some folks, some local government people in interactive sessions, as Krista has said. So with that, I just want to thank again our production team, and then encourage you all to also consider joining our organization, which helps support all the work that we do, and also to take the brief exit survey, in which you'll have an opportunity to indicate that you might be interested in being involved more in a more interactive way again in the fall session, so we can potentially circle back to some folks over the summer, as Krista has indicated. So we want to thank you all for attending, and hope this has been very instructive. Thank our speakers for their session today, giving us more information on how to use the CHaMPS tool. And we'll look forward to seeing you all again this fall. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.